We all know what it's like when life goes sideways. We get sick, our boyfriend leaves us, we lose our job, our house gets destroyed in a hurricane, stuff like that. Now, in many cases like these, philosophy is supposed to provide us a way of dealing with these sorts of situations, of reasserting control, of making more rational decisions, of improving ourselves and improving our surroundings so things run a bit more smoothly. But Taoism gives us something else. Not a solution, not control, but a calm, a serenity that comes from letting go. It teaches us how to stop seeing life so much as a problem to be solved, and instead shows us how to move with it, to accept our fate no matter what and find peace within. The Taoist classic, the Zhuangzi, talks about accepting our fate quite a bit, but the main ideas come in two different flavors. And today I'd like to talk about both of them because I think they offer genuinely good advice that can help people live better lives. So this video is actually based on a paper that I published last year called Two Ways of Being at Peace with Our Fate and Nature in the Zhuangzi. So you can go read that if you're really bored, I guess. But this video is basically the Cliff Notes version that summarizes the main ideas for a general audience. So the main thesis of this video is that the Taoist classic, the Zhuangzi, actually gives us two different ways of thinking about fate and our relationship with it, and both of them are really valuable. Very briefly, one of them is about surrendering to the uncontrollable rhythms and chaos of the cosmos. And the other one is about recognizing, understanding, and working with our own individual nature, which is also part of our fate, since we can't control that. And both of these views offer us a kind of personal liberation. But it doesn't come from learning how to control every aspect of our life, but from giving up the illusion that we can control every aspect of our life, and just learning to go with things as they come to us. In many parts of the Zhuangzi, fate, and here I'm translating ming as fate, refers to basically everything in the universe beyond our control. People are born, people get sick, people die, injustice occurs, empires rise and fall, things happen. All of that is due to ming, or fate. And these events don't actually obey any moral logic. They're not more likely to occur because we're good or less likely to occur because we're bad. They're just expressions of the way of the cosmos, the Tao, the course of the universe itself, and it's utterly indifferent to us. And while many of these things do cause us to suffer, the Zhuangzi recognizes that additional suffering comes from our failure to accept that these things are just going to happen sometimes. The suffering comes from our stubborn insistence that things just shouldn't be this way, and isn't it a tragedy that they are? But part of being a tiny little thing in a vast and immeasurable universe is just dealing with stuff that doesn't really care about us. Now, this idea often gets expressed in the Zhuangzi through stories. One story is about a guy named Zhu, who falls ill mysteriously and somehow turns into a hunchback, covered in sores, who can barely breathe. It sounds pretty awful. And yet he revels in the transformation that he's undergoing, anticipating what the great creator of things might turn him into next. Meanwhile, his friends look on horrified, and one friend even asks him if he actually enjoys what he's going through, and he says, "Of course, why wouldn't I?" There is a timeliness in getting something, and there is obedience in losing it. Be at peace in the timeliness, and dwell in obedience, and sorrow and joy will be unable to enter. So basically, he's accepted his fate, rather than lament that his life isn't what it used to be. The same forces that form us will eventually unform us. We didn't ask for these bodies, and we don't get to keep them. And this is something neither to celebrate nor to grieve. It's just change. It's just part of life, and we just have to accept it. Another story involves a man named Zhao, an official who is given the impossible task of advising a ruthless ruler who will in all likelihood kill him if he doesn't like his advice. So in a panic, Zhao turns to Confucius, who doesn't give him a lecture on politics or virtue, but instead gives a speech about the two great decrees that we are all beholden to. These include basic biological or physical facts, like whether we're short or tall, skilled or clumsy, alive or dead. And they also include certain basic relations that we have with others, like our dedication to our parents or our obligations to our bosses. And this is just how the universe is set up, and it's completely outside of our control. The key, he says, is to treat these decrees not as obstacles, but just as facts, and to meet them with equanimity, not resistance. You're going to be given crazy jobs that you have to do. You will be asked to fit a square peg in a round hole, and that's just going to be part of life. You're going to try your best, and things are still going to go wrong, and you're going to get the blame for it. It just happens. So, in this story and several others, fate isn't so much a chain around your neck, it's more like gravity. It's just a force of nature. You can't beat it, and in fact, it would be foolish to try. But you can learn to work with it, or even make it work for you. If you prefer a nautical analogy, although we can't alter which way the wind is blowing, we can always adjust our sails. And the idea is that this understanding enables us not to get bogged down in things not going the way that we would like them to. Because once we know the way things actually work, and that the universe is actually a chaotic mess, we become less committed to our way of doing things. But the Zhuangzi doesn't tell us to give up or to turn nihilistic. Instead, it asks us to reframe hardships, not as things just to be dealt with or things that make us suffer, but things to be flowed through. And if any of this sounds familiar, well, it should, because many ancient traditions come to a similar conclusion. You get versions of this idea in Buddhism and Stoicism, and Christianity even. The version we find in the Zhuangzi just expresses it with a Daoist vocabulary, talking about the Tao of the cosmos rather than a transcendent Christian God or a rational God of Stoicism. But all of these traditions are basically climbing the same mountain. They're just doing so from different sides. But that's only half the story. In other parts of the Zhuangzi, our Ming, or fate, refers not only to what happens outside of us, but also to what happens within us, to our bodies, to our very nature itself, to our tendencies and our physical makeup, also which we don't have any control over. And the advice here is not only to accept what lies beyond our control in the outside, but also to stop resisting our own design. We shouldn't try too hard to be something that we're not, because we're just going to fail. And we should also respect others for what they are, because otherwise we're just going to hurt them. And the Zhuangzi tries to show us that when we don't do this, and instead we go with our natural proclivities and tendencies, things can go very well for us, and maybe even excellently. One of the most famous stories in the Zhuangzi is about a swimmer who regularly swims in a place so dangerous that nobody else dares to go. Confucius is walking along one day and watches the man dive into the swirling torrent and disappear. Confucius runs after him for a bit, but then assumes that he drowned. But then he pops up downstream, unharmed, and Confucius is really confused. In fact, he's totally stunned, and so he asks the man about his method, his Dao, his way of swimming. The man responds, I have no Tao. I began with my original conditions, grew up with my nature, and was completed by my fate, or ming. And by following this seemingly natural process, he was able to become a master swimmer. His skill isn't the product of hard work and force, rather, it's the culmination of a natural process. The Zhuangzi is telling us that very often, mastery of a skill happens like this. In fact, the best way to master a skill happens like this. And the forces that guide us towards this sort of activity, towards swimming, are going to be called fate. So one of the takeaways here is that with respect to our natural proclivities, our inherent capabilities, and even our immediate environment, we're really better off listening to all that stuff and trying to figure out which way it's pushing us and go along with it. Another story in the same vein tells us what happens when we force things to go against their fate or nature. This story is about a magnificent seabird that lands in a city very far inland, and the ruler is thrilled. He's so excited that he throws a banquet for the bird. There's lots of music and dancing and roast meat, and everybody is there to celebrate the arrival of the bird in this city. But the bird just sort of sits there, terrified, and doesn't eat a thing, and 3 days later, it dies. And the lesson is just that what might be good for you could be poison for somebody else. And it's our fate that's responsible for this. It's simply my fate to enjoy one kind of food and your fate to enjoy another. So the idea of fate here isn't just about going along with whatever the cosmos hands you, it's about respecting the kind of thing you already are. Are you trying to force yourself into a role that doesn't suit you? Are you trying to become more disciplined, extroverted, or selfless than you really are? The Zhuangzi says, stop. This is a fight that you don't need to have, and it's one that you probably won't win. Just figure out what you're good at, Figure out the kind of person you already are and just lean into it, embrace it, because that's your fate. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can start working with it. So we really have two fates. One is written into the stars, the deaths, disasters, and twists and turns of history. The other is written into your bones, your qualities, your preferences, your limits. The Zhuangzi says in both cases, respect that stuff. Listen to it, lean into it, and don't fight it, because it's a fight that you'll never win. Don't struggle to master what can't be mastered. And don't waste your life performing a version of yourself that isn't real. Inner peace isn't about having everything arranged in accordance with your idealized preferences. It's about congruence, equanimity, serenity. It's about noticing the way things actually are and adapting to them as best you can. Let the world be what it is, because it's going to be that way whether you like it or not. And let yourself be who you are, since you're the only you that you've got. Now, there's definitely issues with this view of fate. You might rightfully think that it's too cavalier and doesn't actually give us any rigorous grounds or method for self-improvement. It doesn't give us any way to overcome adversity or engage in any radical self-transformation. It almost suggests sort of giving up in many situations that we really don't want to as human beings. For example, in cases of massive injustice or natural disasters, where we feel like we need to do something to try and help improve the situation of our fellow human being. And many people have noticed this issue in Zhuangzian philosophy, going as far back as the Daoists, who decried this sort of fatalism as nihilistic and only conducive to the most useless and lazy kind of people who just let anything happen without any regard for the consequences. And there are some possible responses, but of course your mileage may vary. But I think the real value of this philosophy comes from its role as a moderating force, because many of us have the opposite problem. Many of us are too obsessed with trying to control every aspect of our lives. Many of us get really upset when life frustrates our efforts, or doesn't reward us appropriately, or rewards others inappropriately. And this sort of thinking causes massive amounts of unnecessary suffering and anxiety. And the Zhuangzi just reminds us, hey, you're actually not in control. And that's okay. Nobody is. None of us are. The world is just gonna do its thing. And we just sort of have to do our best and live with it. And yes, life's rewards don't always match our efforts. But you can always figure out which way the wind is blowing, which way the world is pushing you, and tap into that and use it to your advantage. You're much better off doing nothing and floating downstream with the current than trying to swim upstream against it. And the difference in effort and outcome will be basically incalculable. And that's a pretty powerful thought. But what do you think? Is this a promising way to think about fate, or are we still way off base and just one step away from miserable nihilism? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more Frank Philosophy.